so many different feelings, so many different thoughts. So it could be something from exciting to adventurous to opportunity to nerve-wracking to scary to. So what's the truth? What's the truth about the ocean? If I'm a little fish, I get dropped into the ocean. What's the truth about the ocean? So what is the truth?
More opportunity.
The truth is whatever you believe it to be. The truth comes from your belief about the ocean. In this case, life outside the classroom, when you leave your safe space. So when you leave Vector, or you leave your mom's home, or you leave your comfort place, whatever that might be, relationship, you fill in the blank, that's your ocean. And when you get out into the ocean, the truth is whatever you believe to be true. So what the hell's a belief? What's a belief?
Story you tell yourself.
Just a story that you believe, a story with absolute certainty, 100% certainty that that has meaning attached to it. So you have meaning attached to this 100% certainty. That's what a belief is. It's a story. So story creates the belief, and a belief creates the truth of what we would consider the truth. So there's two different types of stories that we tell ourselves. There's a faith-based story, and there's a fear-based story. So there's two different types of stories that we can tell ourselves. And maybe you've heard some of this before, maybe you haven't. But a fear-based story comes naturally. A faith-based story takes a little bit of effort. A fear-based story is just reaction. That's when we get an autopilot, just what happens around us. A faith-based story takes a little bit of effort to create that environment for us to stay positive. Why is it that naturally we don't have to give any effort to create a fear-based story, but we have to give effort to create a faith-based story? Why is it that the fear doesn't take any effort?
Our reptilian brains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. Every species has a protection mechanism. What's a lizard's protection mechanism? To lose its tail. What's a chameleon's protection mechanism? To change colors. A bird can fly, right? Every species has their own protection mechanism, and our protection mechanism is fear. The fear to protect us. The flight or flight mechanism. So whenever we were created thousands of years ago, we were wired with an amygdala in our brain to create a flight or flight. And that amygdala, which we're wired with, is like a computer program. Like when I move this mouse over the computer and I double click something, it clicks on an icon, and it's programmed to open up the icon, just what it is. But our brain is programmed to have fear-based stories to protect us from our surroundings. That's our gift, if you will. That's our protection mechanism. So it could be a gift, or it could also be a curse. It just depends on, how you look at it. So let's talk about this. If the fear-based stories put us into reaction mode, that's what we'll call it. We'll call it autopilot. A couple of examples of autopilot might be something as simple as putting LOL in a text message, but you're not laughing out loud. Yeah, just reaction mode, autopilot. You're not even thinking about it. You're not even conscious. Such as like when you wake up in the morning, your habitual patterns, how you brush your teeth, how you wash your body, how you brush your hair, how you put on your seatbelt, how you open the door, how you put on your pants, how you tie your shoes. Like it's all habitual. And it's autopilot. You don't really think about it. It's just what is, and it's just what happens. The example I gave at the school was, you ever like zone out in school, and that's when the teacher calls on you? And it's like you zone out, and then they call on you, and your heart beats really fast and stops all at the same time. And in that moment, sometimes you might say, sorry, I was zoning out. Can you repeat yourself? But oftentimes, the student tries to fluff it. They try to like fluff their way out of the answer, and often they get it right. Even though they were unconscious in the moment, they would still get the answer right. That proves the point that our brain is actually operating when we're unconscious, because we're still able to absorb the information that's around us and still get the answer right, even if we're not aware or unconscious of what's happening at that moment. Interesting. We'll come back to that. So if we go into autopilot and we zone out, we get into this reaction mode. So the cause of fear-based stories is reaction, autopilot. What are some effects of that? That's what I want to kind of, walk through for just a moment of like, what are the effects to fear-based stories? What are the effects of going into reaction mode? Go ahead, Josh.
I would say adapting a victim's mentality and not realizing things are happening for you and thinking that they're happening to you.
Yeah, 100%. Things are happening for me, not to me. You get into this victim mentality, which is natural, which happens. Another way of saying the exact same thing is that doubt might settle in. Uncertainty might settle in. So these are some of the consequences. One of the other effects that I have written down, it's easy to get triggered when you're in reaction mode. So when you're in reaction mode, it's easy to get triggered. You ever get triggered where maybe you're having a bad day. You wake up late, you're flustered, you're rushed, you're in traffic, you step in dog poop, your mom yells at you, then you get a bad grade, or like in our business, maybe a no sale. And you have all these, crappy things happening, but then all of a sudden someone asks you a question at the wrong time and you lash out on them. And it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with your, emotional state that you're in, right? So triggering. But here's another flip side of that. Imagine if your mom had a bad day. Her boss yelled at her. She's stuck in traffic. She's low energy. And then she comes home and you tell her, hey, I got a bad grade today. And she lashes out on you harder and stronger than she's ever lashed out on you before. Is that about you or about her? It's about her. But when we're on autopilot, we can't tell the difference. We take it personally. We take it personally when that person is triggered and they take it out on us, but yet we don't want them to take it personally when we get triggered. So when we're on autopilot, we don't have enough conscious awareness to actually interrupt that pattern. When we're in autopilot, a couple other things that come to mind is low energy. Some of the kids I was talking to today, they were in first period and they didn't even know why they were there. They're just on autopilot. They're just showing up just to show up. They don't even know why they're going to school anymore. They don't even know why they're struggling, why they're waking up in the morning, why they're doing what they're doing. They're just low energy. They're tired. Hit the snooze alarm 17 times before they get out of bed. Low energy. Self-loathing is another one. Self-loathing is one of those downward spirals where, especially in social media, where we feel inadequate compared to other people around us. And I acknowledge the students today that it's such a challenging place to be. It's because we're chasing likes and comments, but it's really tough to receive any type of fulfillment if that's what you're chasing. Because let's face it, when you go out to a meal, I know I do this. It's like I'm on my phone, someone else is on their phone, we're texting, whatever, doing our thing, and then it's like, oh, let's take a photo, and then all of a sudden, do you have my dog?
He's at home. He's at work. I couldn't keep him.
Okay, we'll revisit. So let's kind of continue this. I have this. This is my little awful keynote that I was using. So PowerPoint. So let's just kind of actually let me do a share screen here, and that way I get this on Zoom for him. Brandon, you can see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. You can see the PowerPoint?
Yes, sir.
All right. Cool. So we're talking fear-based stories right now. That's essentially what we're talking about. I'll go through these real quick. We said easy to get triggered, low energy, self-loathing, doubt, discouragement. Here's one of the challenges. We don't take risks. When we're in autopilot, we're in reaction mode, we won't take any risks. When we're in reaction mode, we have low commitment levels. When we're in reaction mode, we quit easy. We'll end relationships. We'll end jobs. We'll end, sports teams, whatever it might be. It's because have low commitment. Essentially it creates disengagement. And the biggest one, in my opinion, is judgment. Is when you're in reaction mode, you're casting judgment on other people along with yourself. Let's think about that for a moment. You go to the gym and you look at someone who has tight pants on and you judge. You're like, oh, she's just trying to get blank. Or you look at a dude who's all buff and is like, oh, he's probably doing roids. You cast these judgments on other people because your feeling about yourself is just in autopilot reaction mode. So you cast judgment, and judgment is the basic level of violence. So when we're in autopilot, we just cast these judgments, and I'll tell you right now, that's why the suicide rate for young people are so high, and higher than it ever has been, because of this downward spiral. And just to kind of lay that out for you, this is essentially what it looks like. Most of the time, society is creating outcomes. It's interesting enough, Michael and Zeta talked about this weekend, but society is trying to feed us outcomes. What are the outcomes? Get rich quick, lose weight fast. Match.com, find the love of your life quick. Stuff like that. We try to get these outcomes as fast as possible. So we're trying to get these outcomes, like go to college, and then you get this outcome, you get into college, and then it creates a belief. What's the belief? The belief is, I'm really significant. I'm really smart. I got into college. My mom is going to be proud of me. That creates a feeling of significance and pride, and creates a feeling of, excitement, which creates a different action. And the action is, I'm going to study hard and get good grades, which creates better grades and better outcomes, which creates another belief. And it's this cycle. Think about, anything, in Cutco, the outcome. If you're chasing outcomes like the paycheck, you get this paycheck. Nice. I'm really good. So you believe that you're really good. How does that feel? It feels good. It feels like I'm winning. And then it creates actions to make phone calls. And then that creates more outcomes. And then that's a good cycle. But are the outcomes always there? Are the outcomes always going to be positive? Are they always going to be what's expected? No. So when we're in autopilot and we're in reaction mode and we're listening to our fear-based stories and we're trying to chase an outcome that sometimes isn't there, that's when we don't get the outcome. And then we start believing, oh, I failed the test. Therefore, my mom's not going to be happy with me. So the story I tell myself, the belief is my mom's going to think I'm a failure. The feeling I get from that is I'm insignificant. Creates angst, worry, defeat, burnt out, defeated, overwhelm, which creates low results, or low actions or no actions, which create low results. And then it's that negative cycle. So what's interesting is it doesn't have to be this way. It's just that's how we're wired. That's your protection mechanism. So if we don't interrupt that pattern, that's just what is. So the cause of reaction mode, as we talked about, and the cause of this is the autopilot. The cause of a fear-based story that we live in is autopilot. The effect is massive disengagement. What are the consequences of that? Well, look at your 6 F's: family, faith, fun, friends, finance, fitness. What do the averages say? Over 50% of individuals are addicted to prescription drugs. 50% of marriages end in a divorce. Over 80% of our society is considered overweight or obese. Over 80% of our society is over $100,000 in debt, or have some sort of debt. And this is the crazy truth, that the consequences of being lonely, sick, fat, and broke. Those are the consequences of being in reaction mode. And that's life outside the classroom, if you allow yourself to believe those natural stories that come our way. However, you don't have to believe those stories. You can believe faith-based stories. You could use faith-based stories to create your beliefs, which create your new truth. What's a faith-based story? A faith-based story is what takes effort, and that is unnatural for us as humans, because it doesn't protect us. In fact, there's risk. Faith-based stories come from conquering a fear, doing the things that are tough. What are the things that are tough? Getting on the roller coaster when you're scared to go on it. Asking the girl out on a date or the boy out on a date when you're nervous to do so. Applying for the job, or doing things that you're scared to do. Calling the people that you're scared to call in our business. These are the so when you conquer those fears, it brings more faith-based emotions. When you overcome a challenge, it creates faith-based emotion. When I take a cold shower, even though it's hard and it takes effort, once it's done, I feel good. Think about the day of the week to go to the gym. Maybe it's the day of the month, or maybe it's the year, I don't know. But if that's your day to go to the gym and an epiphany comes over that you don't feel like it. And what happens is you go over all the reasons on why you shouldn't, and all the fearful reasons. What are all the fearful reasons? Oh, I don't want to get all sweaty. I don't want to be sore. I don't want to be tired. I look fat in this outfit. You know, all these different stories that might come your way. And shows up without my dog and answering phone calls during a meeting. Just saying. Hi, Brenda.
I planned that.
So what creates these faith-based is when you still go to the gym anyway. So you hear all these fears, you acknowledge them, but you don't listen to them, and you still go to the gym. And even when you get to the gym, you might catch judgment on other people, but then you start working out and stay in your lane. And whether it's immediately or 1 or 2 or 3 hours later, you always feel good. 10 out of 10 times you'll feel good because you conquered and overcame that challenge. What else creates faith-based emotions is intentional gratitude. Intentional gratitude, when you really feel that in your heart. Every day when I go home, I align my heart with Lindsay. We align our breathing pattern. I give her a big hug, and I don't let go until I feel those little tinglies and those little butterflies. And sometimes she's like, "All right, this is taking too long." And I'm like, "No, I do it until I feel those butterflies. Those are important. I can't teach you how to feel those butterflies, but those are the grateful moments, you know, and that you can revisit. You know, being on the mountain with my dad in Switzerland, to, you know, fun memories with my mom, to, I mean, all these grateful moments that I can easily revisit. You know, my wedding day, these are grateful moments where I could still feel those feelings. But it takes effort to feel those feelings again and relive them. Reading. When you get new perspective, seeing movies happen so fast, and the director is directing when what the tempo is. But when you read, you're controlling the narrative, and you're able to control the tempo of how you're reading. And even though some emotions get built up when you're watching a movie, for sure, reading is penetrating deeper into the unconscious. And it's on your terms, not a director's terms. So reading is great, getting intellectual perspective. Powerful questions in coaching. If I ask you the question right now of what could you be grateful for in your life, you might make a list. If I asked you, what do you hate about yourself, you could also make another list. So guided questions create certain emotions, and you could get great questions through that help your faith-based stories. Stillness and meditation. This is a practice that I've recently really started owning. And the way I describe stillness is that we have 50,000 thoughts a day. When I used to think about meditation, I thought about, like, you know, a monk wearing this robe and shaving my head and going to Tibet and like levitating, you know, like, you know, that's what I thought about meditation. But realistically, through my journey, is that meditation is all a practice of stillness. That's all it is. A stillness of the mind. A stillness of the mind. What does that mean? We have 50,000 thoughts that come through our mind every day. And here's what happens. During the stillness of mind, the thought comes in. And if it doesn't serve me, if I'm unaware, it stays. Thought comes in, it stays. Thought comes in, it stays. And that's what triggers the fear-based emotions. When you practice stillness, a thought comes in, and if it doesn't serve, you can watch it go by. Because you're conscious. You tap into the unconscious. So like this morning when I woke up and I felt a little sick, I was doing my meditation practice, and the thought came in, it was like, you're sick, you're under the weather. Forget these kids. Like, you don't need to talk to them. They might not even remember you. They might disengage. They might not even care. And that thought goes by. I don't need to receive that one. It's like, you have a to-do list. You have so much stuff to get done. You've been out of town for a couple of weeks, and I let that thought go by. Then serving thoughts start flowing through. What if 2 or 3 of these kids, like, can change the course of their entire life by hearing your message today? Ooh, I'll take that one. You know? Things like that. Stillness allows us to choose which thoughts that we want to enter our emotions. Faith-based thoughts. That's what stillness does. Circle of influence. Circle of influence is so critical. During the UPW event, Pitbull was performed, and he gave a message for 20 minutes. It's on my Facebook Live. You check it out. And one of the things that he talked about in his message was that there's always a toxic environment around us. Like, he grew up in Miami, hard knock life, and like everyone around him was like doing cocaine and drugs and alcohol, and he's like this little kid. And he said, even though it was always around me, I was just very perceptive. Like, I didn't allow myself to get influenced. The people that influenced me was my mom, my grandma, my aunt. And he's like, that's who would influence me, even though my toxic environment was around me. And I just think about toxic people, toxic environments, they're here to stay. They're not going anywhere. But who influences you is up to you, how much influence they have over you. And I told the students today, I said, if you have a friend that you say, hey, I think I'm going to go start that business. I think I'm going to try for that job. And the friend says, I don't think you should do it. I think you're going to fail. I would drop the friend. I would release that friend from my life. If you have a friend that says, hey, even if you fail, I'll be here to support you, and at least you'll know you tried. That's a real friend. I told the kids today, I was like, 12,000 Instagram followers that don't know your name, that's not friends. Find a really good friend that can help you become a better version of yourself. That will feed that faith-based story for sure. So the faith-based story. So what happens with the faith-based story is we don't care about the outcomes. What happens is we're centered here. And when we take risks, we know, okay, if I take a risk and I succeed, I'm better. If I take a risk and I don't succeed, I'm right where I am. So the goal is to be happy where I am, joyful where I am, fulfilled where I am. So that way, life only gets better or stays the same. And if we're good with staying the same, and we're happy with staying the same, then we're more susceptible to have the belief is going to create these feelings of fulfillment, abundance, which is going to take actions. And by taking those actions, you're more likely to get the outcomes if you didn't try. And even if you don't care about the outcomes, but you still control those beliefs, it still creates that upward cycle. So the cause is this self-discovery of yourself, of this faith-based stories. The effect is a high level of self-confidence, high level of self-awareness of where you are and who you are. And the consequence is the rich get richer, the fit get fitter, the wealth get wealthier. That's the consequence. So the secret to life of what I shared with these kids about the life outside the classroom is focus on the process and forget the prize. And when you focus on the process of intentionally creating faith-based stories, believing those stories to be the truth, and giving the effort and interrupting the pattern when those fear-based stories come through, and interrupting the pattern. And the more you can interrupt the pattern and get faith-based stories and give the effort intentionally, that's what's going to help you reach the high levels of fulfillment and excitement that you want to have in life outside the classroom. So some of the actions I gave: create a list of faith-based stories, overcome risks, overcome challenges, conquer your fears, like go for it. Call the people you're nervous to call. Ask the people you're nervous to ask. Just go for it. Number 2 is document your feelings in a journal. So document everything, capture them. And I know we know this, but that's one of the things we talked about. And then lastly was unattached from the outcomes. And I shared with them as a wrap up that when I missed my flight, I was enraged. I was pissed. I was disappointed. And the story that I told myself for about 3 minutes when I missed my flight was, Scott Dennis is going to be disappointed. Jeff's going to be disappointed. How is this going to look upon myself and my people? Like, I'm not there. They already made exceptions for me to go to UPW. And these were all the stories. And I was enraged and disappointed all at the same time for about 3 minutes. Interrupted my pattern, booked a hotel, got the rental car. And in my journal, I actually wrote down intentionally, what do I want this weekend to be about? And how can I still make this a great weekend. And it doesn't matter. The journal entry said something like, still showing up for my people and celebrating with them, still giving a lot of gratitude to people I care about, creating a fun memory with my people however I can. Like, those are the things that I was talking about. And I didn't know how it was going to unfold, but it's kind of cool how it unfolded. Celebrating with you at the factory and celebrating with you at the table and making fun of Stephen for spilling water all over the place, snowball fight, building a snowman. Like, we were able to create some fun moments. Good thing I was able to show up the right way by interrupting the pattern and not being attached to the outcome of the circumstance. And you could do that for the rest of your life too. So that was my message today, with a lot more energy, of course. I don't know how that compares to some things you maybe heard in the past or maybe heard recently. But based upon what you guys were telling me, it sounds similar to what Michael Linzetto was talking about. Maybe, I don't know. But all of this is, it's powerful stuff, and it's deep. And bringing it to the students, man, today, some of them really connected and some of them went right way over their head. And it validated for me of like, the ones that receive this are the ones that are willing to level up. And that's my audience. I don't need to please everyone. I please those and serve those that are ready to be served. And it was a really good, it was a good day. And so I don't know if you have any questions or comments before we kick off our phone jam. Questions, comments, or takeaways, or anything in that.
Just something that's pretty big that we've always seen here all the time. Just reinforce it when face-to-face stories, you're asking better questions, and I feel like pretty much whatever question that you ask, you're gonna end up getting an answer for. So it makes sense to ask certain questions that are gonna benefit you. And then also just the characteristics of faith or of fear-based stories. How you're easily triggered, your self-loathing,